Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Morons and a Mic. I am Moron number one, Cody, and with me, as always, is Moron number two, Teddy. So, today we're gonna start off talking about getting burnt out. And I've seen this a few times on Twitter now, and I've got some friends that are also facing that fantasy burnout. And you just got to remember, at the end of the day, fantasy football is just a game, right?
Yep.
It's not some life-altering thing where the decision everything rides on you making the correct choice, and if you don't make the correct choice in running back, you're going to die. That's not how this works. It's a game of chance. It really is.
Yep.
So Teddy and I like to try to put you guys in the best position to win your week, but every given Sunday is a thing for a reason. Just try not to take it personally. Don't lash out to anybody on the internet, like a player or something, hopping in their DMs and calling them ugly names. And if you have league mates that are making your playing experience miserable, find a new league. You can find a league on Reddit, on Twitter, Threads. Just pick your poison.
Yep.
Everything to add, Ted?
I do. So, ultimately, fantasy football is supposed to be fun. So, whatever makes it fun for you, do that. If you want to be the person that makes trades, go ahead, shoot your shot, make some trades. If you don't ever want to make trades, that's okay too. But whatever makes it fun for you, just do that thing. And if you're in a league, like if you really want to make trades and nobody in the league wants to trade, join a new league. You don't have to leave the league you're in, but you can go do a different one. Find it on Reddit, Twitch, whatever, and go to one that's more active. Make some trades. If you don't like your team, that's okay. Go get a new one. If you're going through a rebuild, rebuilds suck. I actually find them kind of freeing. It's because you have zero expectations. It's awesome. You're just like, I hope my young guy gets like 5 or 6 catches today. That's great. That's a good week for me.
And then when they do,
and if they don't, it's yes.
Yeah, accurate.
So, I've done a rebuild in every league, but at the same time, it's not. I've never been in a situation where I didn't have a different league going at the same time to help me out. I have a good mix of like redraft leagues and dynasty leagues, and I've never been doing a rebuild in all my dynasty leagues at the same time. 2 of my dynasty leagues right now, I'm trying to win. One of them, rebuild. We're going to Ashton Genty with 101 in that super flex draft, let me tell you. But it's something that I've added 1 or 2 leagues a year for the last couple of years. It's not like I just joined all of a sudden overnight 7 leagues or whatever.
Right.
So just
all right.
Have fun.
Now that that's done, I had to go to the store today to get a couple things, and while I was there, I saw this really fun Halloween pack. Score a treat. And so we're going to open this together and see if we get anything good.
If you get a Justin Herbert, it's fine.
It says 40 packs per bundle, and each one has 3 cards.
Wait, why didn't they just make...
Listen, I don't know. I think these are supposed to be like you give them out instead of candy to trick-or-treaters.
Okay, now that makes sense to me.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. We got a Ivan Pace Jr. Oh, A.D. Mitchell. Look at that. Rising star.
Is it numbered or anything? Or is it just like, oh, that's a cool looking card?
It's a cool looking card. It's not numbered. Let's be difficult. I want to bend the cards.
Yeah, don't do that. They won't grade well.
Who's in pack number 2? Oh, I dropped him. Joe Thomas. That's a throwback. Joe Milton and another throwback. Flipper Anderson.
Oh, wow.
So
that is
nothing.
That was a throwback pack. That was nice. And Joe Milton's kind of a throwback because he plays QB like, somebody from the 80s does.
I see a Joe Burrow. All right. Tajay Spears, Marvin Harrison Jr., and Joe Burrow. Still nothing numbered or anything.
Nothing too fancy.
Man, there's a lot of packs in here. I don't know if we're going to get through all of them.
There's no way. I say let's open 1 or 2 more and then call it move on.
All right. Second to last pack. All right, we got a Devontae Smith. Lad McConkey. You want your boy? Lad McConkey?
No, I'm good.
I'll set that aside for you. I had Lawrence Taylor. All right, last one. Last one, and then we'll get running into the
pull a 101.
leader.
Let's get something exciting. Let's go.
Come on. All right, we're not opening that pack. I'll use scissors for that one.
You're having some trouble here.
These are tight packs, man.
Nice and tight.
Nice and tight. Teddy, I gave you a link on how to fix that.
That was actually your text just popped into the computer.
Little late.
Very late.
Spencer Rattler and Jim Kelly and some defensive end for the Patriots. I have no clue who they are.
Who is it? Show it. Show it to me.
Dietrich Wise Jr.
Wow, I know who that is. Nice.
All right.
I know things. Yay.
That's good. Whatever.
Yeah, that's fine. Done.
We're done with that. All right. Off to the panic meter section. All right. First up on my panic meter. Went up a little bit last night. It's going to be.
Let's tell the people. This is the first time we've done the panic meter. Let's tell them the scale. It's 1 through 5. And then also there's a shadow box. And once the person's been banned or persons has been banned to the shadow box, they cannot be taken from the shadow box until they give us a reason to.
Agreed. All right. So on a scale of 1 to 3, I've got Bijan Robinson to start us off at a 3. I'm middle panic here. He was drafted in the top 10 to be a generational running back, which they didn't even really need because Tyler Algier was a fantastic running back as a rookie. They could have taken any number of fantastic defensive players that were in that draft.
That they really needed, too.
That they really needed. But they didn't. They went with someone who was supposed to be a generational running back. And he has the talent. We saw the run last night to end the third quarter where he put that nasty juke on Jordan Whitehead, the safety for the Bucs. Shows you what he can do. He's got the talent. My panic meter is all about his usage.
Yes.
Do you know how they started that last drive in regulation last night?
A run to Algier, I believe.
A run right up the gut with Algier. It's mind-boggling. And I don't think I can say it any better than Hutchinson Brown did over on Twitter. He said, why did they draft Bijan Robinson at number 8 if this was the plan? Because it just doesn't make sense.
Can I answer that?
Of course.
It doesn't feel like they have a plan. They drafted Kyle Pitts in the top 10. Where's the plan there? The next year, they drafted Drake London. The first 2 years, no plan. This year, they have a plan. That one's paying off for him. I'll give him that one.
But don't worry. The owner put himself in the team's Ring of Honor. So
yeah, it was important to do.
It was very important.
Bijan in the top 10 at a position they didn't really need. Bijan's a great player, but why are you drafting somebody in the top 10 that's going to play 60% of your snaps? That doesn't make sense. And then the next year, they drafted a backup quarterback in the top 10. Good job, Falcons. So outstanding work.
Beautiful. All right, you want to take the next one?
Yeah, so we got a question about the Dolphins receiver room. It was really about, we got 2 separate questions about Tyreek and Jalen Waddle. But what I'm about to say applies to both, so we're going to cover them. Both of these guys are shadow boxed until Tua comes back. We're going to go ahead and expand it. We're going to include all Dolphins offensive players in the shadow box until Tua comes back.
Including running backs?
Including the running backs. It scares me a little bit because the root of this offense, it's a Shanahan-inspired offense, and its root is the run game. And I know this is going to maybe surprise people. They're like, Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle, but look at what their running backs did last year. It was a generationally efficient offense. I mean, it was way more efficient running the ball than the second most. Like standard deviations above the mean. It was stupid how efficient they were running the football.
Yeah.
Now, we've seen this for the last couple of years. Even with Tua healthy, the Dolphins' offense tends to kind of stagnate. 3/4 of the year, a little over half the year in. It's a calendar turns to November. Slows down. And I kind of assumed that it was a Tua thing. But at what point do we start asking if this is a Mike McDaniel thing? Because we've seen other teams have their backup QBs and still put a functional offense on the field. Look at what Matt LaFleur did in Green Bay. He took Malik Willis, who had looked awful in Tennessee, and won 2 games with Malik Willis. Now, admittedly, he wasn't having Malik Willis throw 40 times a game, but the fact was that he designed a functional offense. He had a good, well, maybe not good, but at least solid offense out there you can win the games with. Look at what Kevin O'Connell is doing with our boy Sam Darnold. Look at what he did last year with Mullins, because Sam Darnold is a little bit different than I think the Tua comparison, because with Skylar Thompson and Snoop Huntley, you didn't get the offseason to prepare like they were going to be your starter. Like it was a obviously unforeseen circumstance. Whereas the Vikings have Darnold, obviously they knew he was going to be the starter from the beginning.
Well, but I think the starting quarterback was going to be J.J. McCarthy.
At some point, yes, but they were preparing with Darnold as the starter for at least the beginning of the year. But look at last year, what he did with Jeremiah Mullins. Or not Jeremiah Mullins.
Nick Mullins.
Sorry.
How dare you call Big Dick Nick Jeremiah?
Look at what he did with Nick Mullins last year. That was a last second start. Look at what he did with Josh Dobbs had a few good games for him. He's been able to put a consistently decent offense together despite who he has at quarterback. Yeah. Where's that for McDaniels? Where's the run game right now? The run game is 31st in success rate, but ahead of only the Raiders, who are like they're so far below the bottom of the barrel. That Raiders offense, if they do trade Davante Adams, buddy, it's going to be rough because they can't run with Davante dictating coverage. What the hell are they going to do when teams can put an extra safety in the box? Oof, it's going to be bad. Anyways.
Yeah, and I think a big part of that Mike McDaniels offense is it's built based on having a quarterback that can do certain things.
It is.
And once you lose that quarterback, you're going to have to change up your offense. And he hasn't yet.
Yep.
He's still expecting these backup quarterbacks to go in there and do the same things that Tua was doing when they're just not as gifted. They're not as talented.
Well, they're just very different players. They have different strengths and weaknesses than Tua. Like, this scheme works so well for Tua because he's such a good anticipatory thrower.
What a word.
I know, right?
Anticipatory.
I'm trying to make myself get kicked out of the morons, Mike. I want it to be one moron and one smart person in Mike.
There you go. All right, let's move on. I got a wide receiver on here that a lot of people I'm seeing on Twitter are panicked about, and it's Brandon Ayuk. Ayuk is fourth in average separation score this year, or ass as we like to call it. He's got great ass, meaning he's still cooking defensive backs and getting open. He's gotten 25 targets in 4 games. Unfortunately, those targets have only turned into 13 catches. But here's the kicker. Out of those 25 targets, only 16 have been catchable balls, and he had 2 drops. So he's still getting 20% of the team's targets, has an average air yard per target of 21.8, which leads the team by far, and he's going to be fine going forward. The advanced metrics say don't panic.
Kyle Shanahan was asked about this after the game this past week, and he said he didn't, like, the reporter did not say ass. He said advanced separation score. There was a metric. But he said that, Ayuk is showing well in that. Is that tracking with what you guys are seeing? And Shanahan was like, so the metrics are saying he's getting open. Reporter said, yep. And Shanahan was like, yep, that tracks with what we're seeing too. They're just doing a lot of different stuff to take him away. His timing's not back. He's probably not quite in game shape, but he's getting better. Like, I heard somebody say this, and it felt really smart. If you have Brandon Ayuk on your team, and you're like, I want the prove it game, I want the big game to show me that he's still there, and until then I'm going to bench him. Well, how's it going to feel when he goes off for 120 and 2 TDs on your bench? Let him have the big game in your starting lineup, because it's coming. Brock Purdy is playing really, really well. Like, I think, especially with the injuries that have befell the 49ers this year, I think we can safely say that Purdy is probably better than we had all thought, because, I know you and I have talked about this. Well, you're a 49ers fan. You don't count. But you and I had talked about this. It was hard to tell how good Purdy was. Like, he was good, but how good is he? Because, I mean, everything he could have possibly wanted for a supporting cast. Great offensive mind at head coach, all-time left tackle, 2 awesome receivers, an awesome tight end, an awesome running back. It was all there.
Right.
So how good was he? Well, this year he's playing out of his mind. Like, the Kyle Shanahan Yak Merchant offense isn't a thing right now. Hasn't been this year. It's the lowest percent of Yak all year. Guess who their typical deep ball guy is? At least was last year.
Ayuk.
Brandon Ayuk. You put all these things together, the big game is coming. Brandon Ayuk didn't just forget how to play football after they paid him.
No.
It's coming.
He'll be fine. He'll be fine.
Yeah.
Talk to me a little about Jalen Hurts. How do you feel?
All right, so Jalen Hurts, I'm at a moderate level of panic for him. So much of what makes Hurts such a valuable QB is his running ability. Like, you look at his rookie season, his second season, he was running a lot, scrambling a lot. It wasn't just the tush push. You know what I mean? Although that does obviously add value because there's a lot of touchdowns in that.
It's Diddy's favorite, too.
It is Diddy's favorite. But, as far as we know, Jalen Hurts isn't using baby oil. But he has not looked as explosive. I know it was a good one, Cody, but come on. Pull yourself together. We got a show to film. But yeah, he hasn't looked as explosive running outside the pocket over the last year or so. It's probably related to that knee injury, but when you drafted Hurts, you thought in your head, at least, I thought that the QB1 overall was a realistic outcome for him. That was in his range of outcomes. Yeah. Right? Well, if he's not running, that's gone. And then because he had gotten better every year as a passer from the time he was at Alabama until his second year with the Eagles when he made a big jump. But since then, it's kind of stagnated. And this year, in fact, he's leading the NFL in turnover-worthy throws with 11. That's 4 more than the next highest, which coincidentally is Patrick Mahomes. But it's just way too many mistakes. And obviously, you're not expecting him to light it up with Britton Covey and Jahan Dotson at receiver instead of Devontae Smith and A.J. Brown. But the simple fact is that you expect more than that. You expect touchdowns. You don't expect mistakes. Right. And that's what he's making, his mistakes.
You still think he can be QB1 this year?
The QB1? No.
The QB1.
A QB1, top 10? Absolutely, because his floor is still good enough with the tush push and the rushing touchdowns. He's almost certainly going to finish in the top 10. But you just have to realize that the ceiling is not great. Well, not as great as it was. And what if the rushing touchdowns dry up too? Because he has dealt with injuries in the past. Now they have Saquon, who, by the way, is absolutely killing it. I can't believe I traded him in one of the leagues. And now Saquon's getting, they're using him down there at the goal line.
Yeah,
they've given him multiple carries inside of the 5. It's not like DeAndre Swift last year where it was get ready to learn tush push, buddy. You ain't scoring. You know what I mean? It's not the same.
I think he'll be fine once his receivers come back, but right now he's just not looking great. Let's move on to Sam Laporta. I put him on here. I've got him as a 3 out of 5, just because the Lions' offense this year has been built around their running backs and peppering the sun god with targets. Amon-Ra St. Brown has gotten 31% of the team's targets, and Jameson Williams is right behind him with 22 or something like that. And he's getting all the deep shots. Unfortunately, Laporta only has 1 less reception than Jameson Williams, but he's only got 50 air yards. So he's getting an average of 4.3 air yards per reception. And he's just turned into a safety valve for Jared Goff, whereas Amon-Ra is attacking the middle of the field on those 2 high looks. So I don't think Sam Laporta is going to drop out of the top 10 or 12 tight ends this year just because it's such a bad year for tight ends. Bad. You could catch 3 passes for 20 yards and congratulations. You got a 5-point week, which means you're probably leading your league in tight end points.
Catch a fluky touchdown from Elijah Higgins. Exactly. That's tight end 2 on the week there, baby.
Exactly. Yeah, I'm a level 3 on Sam.
I'm actually going to disagree slightly. I'm going to go with a 2, and the reason for that is because the first couple games, Jameson Williams' target share was crazy. The Lions' offense wasn't super efficient, and it kind of feels like after these last couple games, Jameson Williams' target share, first read target share, all that stuff has dropped back down to not what it was last year. Still, it's still better. But Jameson Williams, it kind of felt like they were trying to incorporate the shiny new toy
Mhm.
into their offense, and they realized that the offense wasn't as efficient. It looked a little clunky the first 2 weeks. And part of that was because, last year they did a lot of design stuff for Laporta, a lot of design stuff for Amon Ra. Now, I don't think Laporta is going to match what he was last year, where he had like the 80 something catches for 800 and whatever yards and what was it, 10 touchdowns.
Mhm.
There's almost no way he matches those same numbers because Jameson Williams is playing well enough to command a larger share of the offense.
Right. I
But
just feel like he's dropped down in the pecking order quite a bit.
I don't think of quite a bit because there's nobody around him that's doing anything either. So this past game, they did make a more concerted effort to get him more targets, and I do think it's. I'm not saying again he's not going to do what he did last year, just based on the targets. There's not enough to go around for him,
Right.
Williams, Amon Ra, Jahmyr Gibbs, who hasn't gotten a catch in the last 2 games, which is just unfathomable. You know what I mean? Like you, that team is going to run the ball a lot. There's not going to be that many targets. Amon Ra is going to get his. Apparently, Jared Goff's going to get a target every now and again. So it's just, I think it's a 2 for me simply because it's not like anybody else is having a great year for tight ends either. So he can still finish a top 5 tight end. He can still finish exactly where you drafted him, even if it's not as good a year as last year.
Right. What was it last week? What's his name? Taysom Hill started out the week as like tight end number 49 in
Yeah.
fantasy, ended the week as tight end 10.
Yeah, two short touchdowns. It's not even like he got like 2 fluky plays where he gained like 50 yards on him and scored TDs. No, he had 2 short touchdowns of like, I don't know, 5 yards ish. Like,
Yeah.
boom, there you go. 13 points, baby. You know what I
Top
mean?
10.
Yeah.
That's
Oh my
how bad
god.
the tight end position. All right, let's talk about a person that both of us had written down for this panic meter section, and that's Garrett Wilson.
Yeah. All right. So Garrett Wilson last year, we like Matt Harmon's work here at Reception Perception. His reception perception profile last year, he was an elite separator. Man zone press didn't matter. He was an elite separator. But he noted, Matt Harmon did, that he was a little loose at the catch point. He had some things to clean up. And if he was going to make that jump into the elite receiver tier, that he needed to do that. So part of the reason that I'm full panic with him is he has not done that. So, he was drafted based on a theoretical season, right? Because everybody assumed, myself included, I drafted him in one of my leagues, that, hey, Zach Wilson's gone. Tim Boyle's not throwing him passes anymore, hopefully, until Rodgers gets hurt and wants his buddy back in the room with him. But those 2 guys are gone. We're going to switch them out with Aaron Rodgers. Everything's going to be great. Yeah, Nathaniel Hackett sucks, but he sucked last year too. And like Garrett Wilson still had a solid enough year without any kind of relevant QB play. So he hasn't made the leap. Another thing is that his style, what Nathaniel Hackett is asking him to do, and what Aaron Rodgers wants to do with the football are 2 different things right now. Aaron Rodgers wants to get rid of that ball quick because he's 40, coming off a torn Achilles. Like, it makes a lot of sense. If I was 40, I'd want to get rid of the ball quick too, with guys like Myles Garrett and TJ Watt and other behemoths trying to take my head off. I'd be like, snap and throw that shit out there, The problem is that Hackett is having Wilson run a lot of deeper or longer developing routes that Rodgers doesn't have the patience or mobility to hit consistently.
Or time, because their line is absolute trash.
Yeah, I mean their line is much better than it was last year, but yeah, it's not a perfect offensive line. But Hackett is just not helping his receiver out. And Garrett Wilson actually made mention of this in his last game. I tagged you in this on Twitter, where he said himself, it looks like when I watch other teams, they're doing different stuff, and we're just not. Welcome to Nathaniel Hackett, buddy. Like, that guy is only an offensive coordinator because he's Aaron Rodgers' friend. But between all these things, I still think Wilson could have a massive year if the offensive coordinator would put him in better position to succeed with what Rodgers wants to do. However, the reason that I'm at full panic is because we know that Nathaniel Hackett is highly unlikely to do that.
Yeah, and I think it's important to keep in mind that some wide receivers are quarterback proof, right? Justin Jefferson is one of those guys. It doesn't matter who's throwing the ball, he's going to get his points, right? Jamar Chase, when Burrow was out, still put up points. Garrett Wilson has one top 12 finish in since the start of last year. So at what point do we start blaming him and say it's not a quarterback problem, it's a him
So
problem?
it is like nobody's truly QB proof. Like I don't care if you put Justin Jefferson in that offense last year with Nathaniel Hackett. Justin Jefferson's not going to put up crazy numbers. One of the reasons that Jefferson's QB proof is because he plays for a team with a very smart head coach that puts him in positions to succeed. So that coach maximizes the QBs that are throwing Jefferson the ball. The Jets offensive coordinator does not do that at all. Like look at what happened last year with the Seahawks. Coaching makes a huge difference. And, this is one of the reasons that I was so high on Drake London this year was because he has a much better QB and a better offensive ecosystem that would hopefully put him into better positions to succeed.
Mm-hmm.
And we'll talk about it, but we saw that last night, and we'll talk about kind of why. But
I actually almost had Kirk Cousins on here before last night's game.
Yeah, he's still not healthy, but Wilson's not getting any of that. He's getting no help, none. And yeah, he's not perfect. There have been some plays where it's like there was one play he caught the ball 5 yards in bounds and somehow didn't get 2 feet in. I think it was week 2. He got 1 foot in and just couldn't drag the second one. I think he just kind of forgot where he was on the field. He's not perfect, but he's getting open. The plays are there.
Mm-hmm.
But for a confluence of other factors, I don't think he's going to have the year that everyone thought that he would have. I was thinking he'd have this monster, 1,500 yard season. He's still going to have a solid season. Right. But the Jets also have kind of a murderer's row of opposing defenses. The last couple of corners he's faced, he's Pat Surtain in the Denver defense, which is it's not just Pat Surtain on the defense. The defense is just straight up a top 5 defense in this league right now.
Yeah.
And Christian Gonzalez on the Patriots. He's got to face Christian Gonzalez again. And then you look at the fact that the Jets' own defense is pretty good, so they don't feel the need. It's kind of like one of the reasons that Mahomes hasn't been scoring a lot of fantasy points. There's no need. There's no need to put 30 points on the board. You run the ball, shorten the clock. So all these other factors are combining to kind of drive down his ceiling. I still think he's going to be a good player. It's not like he's going to finish wide receiver 40 or something like that. But, most people probably drafted him as a wide receiver. They drafted him definitely as their wide receiver 1.
Yes.
He ain't finishing as a wide receiver 1. I don't see it.
Oh. All right, last one. Anthony Richardson. I'm a full-on panic for redraft, but for dynasty leagues, probably a 1 or a 2.
Yep. I think it's got to be a 2, I think, for dynasty, just because, so we'll go into redraft first while we're at full panic, because accuracy, which is the thing he's really struggling with, is simply not something that gets fixed overnight. He has the second highest off-target throw percentage in the NFL, behind only Bryce Young, who has been benched. The third place, coincidentally, is Trevor Lawrence. By the way, if you want to know how Jacksonville's going. So yeah, it's not something that gets fixed overnight. It's just been a problem all year. He's really raw. He only had 10 starts in college because he got hurt his last year at Florida, and he didn't start until that year. Mm-hmm. So he's had very few starts there. He got hurt after, I think, 4 starts in his rookie season, 2 of which he didn't even finish. There's just not a lot of snaps there. So he's still learning the game. He's still learning the position. Additionally, for fantasy football purposes, you want your QBs to run. Now, you might not want them to run in real life and get hurt, but rushing yards are the most valuable yards that a QB can bring to the table. So he's not running. This was a thing that I think was misconstrued about him as a prospect coming out of Florida. Everybody thought he's big, he's fast, he's strong. He runs a lot. He really didn't. He would scramble to throw. His scramble percentage was very low, especially when you consider the type of player that he is. And it's continued on to this year. His scramble rate's 8%, which is much lower than what you would think for a player of his size and speed and the preconceived notions that people have about him. He wants to throw the ball. This isn't like Jaden Daniels, who's looking to scramble first sign of trouble. Jaden Daniels has the highest scramble rate in the NFL at 19.5% of his dropbacks are scrambles. 1 in 5. That's a lot.
Still QB1.
That's one of the reasons that he's QB1 is that he's running a lot. Richardson is just simply not. He's not running that much. And now we have more injuries that'll probably further reduce his rushing ability because that hip pointer, even if he plays, it's going to limit his mobility somewhat. And that's just all problems for redraft leagues. Like none of that's good. He's not going to finish where you drafted him. But for dynasty leagues, all the same reasons that I'm panicking for redraft, you hold him. You can't sell him right now. You'd be selling low. However, if he fixes those things, if he fixes the accuracy in particular, he's still the Konami code of QBs. He's a cheat code. You just have to hope that he fixes it. And if you're going to move him, probably move him in the offseason when somebody else thinks he might fix it. You can't just give up on him. He's just too physically talented a player, and you just have to hope that he puts it together.
Fair enough. All right, that's it. That's all we got for our panic meter section. Let's talk about last night's game.
Let's talk about last night's game.
It was, as you can see on my sign, Kirko Chains is back.
I can't see the sign.
Oh.
Yeah, but Kirko Chains is back because they finally unlocked Drake London. Oh man, the last couple years have been rough. We hear the last 2 years Drake London's not a good receiver because he hasn't put up the stats. And it doesn't matter his QBs. It's like that stuff does matter, especially the offensive coordinator, QBs. The Falcons threw the fewest passes in the NFL last year to wide receivers by a lot. Well, guess what happens when you don't throw very many passes to receivers? They don't catch a lot of passes.
Yeah.
So London's not immune.
Big if true.
Yeah, right? Analysis.
Yeah.
So he's not immune from that stuff. So now they have a real QB. They threw the ball a bunch last night. But even over the last month, his target per route run rate has been 30.5%. That's crazy. That'd be since 2020, including 2020. It'd be like the fourth highest target per route run rate in the database, behind like a couple Tyreek Hill seasons, and I think it was a Justin Jefferson season. Like it's really, really high. And part of that is because they're moving him into the slot more. His slot snap share last night, he had 20 snaps from the slot, 20 routes from the slot. He had 9 targets, 8 catches, 117 yards, and a touchdown from the slot. They are doing things to make sure he gets the ball with some yard after catch opportunity, which I know, big if true, put your best players in space, get them the ball. Oh, man. Somebody let Arthur Smith know. Somebody let Nathaniel Hackett and Shane Waldron crib this game plan.
Yeah.
Let them do this.
It was nice to see Pitts involved some more. And like I told you when I showed you my money line bet, and you were surprised that I had Pitts on there, it's because everyone's benching him. Everyone's benching him because they're all tired of the goose eggs, which means he's probably going to get some points. And he did.
Yep. And now
it was nice to see him involved.
Now that people will start him again, he'll go back to getting 0 until the next time he's benched. But I do think that Pitts is interesting because he's coming out at 6'6", runs a 4.48 or whatever it was that he ran at that size. That's crazy, right? Well, the problem with Pitts is that they're using him on like horizontal breaking routes, and that's not his game. Because if you're lined up outside, which is where they've been lining him up the most, if you're lined up outside, guess what? A corner is covering you, and a corner is a lot quicker because they're a lot smaller than Kyle Pitts is with his 6'6" body. So if you're using him a lot of horizontal stuff like slants and other stuff like that, the corner is going to run that route for him. He's going to be right there. What you really need to do with Kyle Pitts is use him vertically. The problem is, the hard part is, they have a hard time lining him up like next to the tackle because he can't block for shit. So what you have to kind of cater it to him, right? Mm-hmm. And we actually saw that last night on the first big play he had. Guess what? They lined him up next to the tackle, which means that he's probably not going to get covered by a corner. He's running the seam, and he outran a linebacker. That's what you need to do with Kyle Pitts. You need to use him against linebackers and maybe a safety, right? But in particular, you need to line him up where he can get attempted to be covered by a linebacker. Because that's going to be a win for you. If you're trying to have him beat a safety or a corner, that's not going to work. It's not going to work out.
Yeah. I think my favorite pickup so far, besides Jordan Mason, which was prior to the year, but my favorite pickup on one of my teams is Darnell Mooney, who had a fantastic game last night, and he is right up there with London on targets and receptions. So it's great to see.
Yeah, they complement each other really well. I do want to point out a couple things really drove the passing game. The 500 yards from Cousins last night. The Falcons couldn't run on the Bucks because Vita Vea is an absolute monster, and he was just, like, unblockable all game long. Him and Gaines were unblockable, so they couldn't run. Nobody can run on the Bucks really very well because, again, Vita Vea is a mountain of a human being. So they have what's a pass funnel defense. They just funnel passes. People pass on them. I don't think that the Falcons are going to be throwing the ball 56 times a game going forward. I would be surprised if that happens. It's great for the fantasy stats for our guys, but I can't see that happening. But I definitely do think that Darnell Mooney and Drake London complement each other very, very well. I think Drake London obviously is given the histories of the two, I want Drake London if you're going to give me one of those guys. But I think Darnell Mooney he's getting close to every week start as a perfectly fine wide receiver 2 flex type guy.
Yep, agreed. All right, let's talk about the Bucks. It's a little bummed to see that Bucky Irvin didn't get a touchdown, but
same. They did try. They did try. It's just it was not blocked well. Somebody came in off the backside and just dragged him down before he even had a chance to get going.
Yeah.
Nothing you can do there as a running back.
No, I would have hit on last night, but dang. Oh well.
But right. So Bucky, he had that fumble late in the game, and sometimes that can lead a player, especially a rookie, into the doghouse, like Carson Steele. But Bucky it doesn't seem like he's going to be in the doghouse. So first of all, during the game, he was back on the field 2 offensive snaps later, and he got a carry. So that shows you there's trust there. And they asked Todd Bowles about it after the game. And Todd Bowles, they asked him what he said to Bucky after the game about the fumble. And he said, I didn't say anything. It happens. It's football. He fumbled. He's one of our better players. So we're going to keep giving him the football, and good things are going to happen. But it's a complimentary game. If something like that happens, then you got to play good defense. That was a fantastic answer. Todd Bowles isn't going to rip down his rookie for one mistake. You know what I mean? When that rookie has looked so good, he didn't have a fumbling problem at Oregon. So it's not something, it's like, if Marshawn Lloyd fumbled, that might be a different story because Marshawn Lloyd had one of the highest fumble rates in the country last year at USC. Like, there's no pre-existing history. And players fumble sometimes. It's the NFL. It happens. The defensive guys get paid too, especially Jesse Bates. He gets paid a lot of money because he's really good. And then elsewhere on the offense, Mike Evans and Chris Godwin are just so good. And I was a little worried about Liam Cohen and how the Bucs offense would be designed after Dave Canales left. I was a little bit worried about that because Dave Canales is straight up a very good offensive designer. And so far, the offense looks just really, really fun. And Baker played really well. It was really nice to see Sterling Shepard, who I kind of thought that his career would be over because of the issues with injuries he's had. 3 straight years, he went on injured reserve with turf toe, which if you don't know what that is, look that up. That's horrible. And next year, he tears his Achilles. The next year, he tears his ACL. And now he's back with the Bucs. Or not back with the Bucs, but now he's on the Bucs, and he's catching touchdowns again from Baker Mayfield.
Just like he did here in Oklahoma. Boomer.
Yep. Sooner. But, I don't think it's going to be, I don't think that Sterling Shepard is their typical number 3 receiver. They don't think that either. Jalen McMillan is out with I think it's a hamstring. Trey Palmer was doing the number 3 stuff before he got out with a concussion. So, it's not like Sterling Shepard's not going to be somebody that I'm telling you to go sprint out onto the waivers and pick up. It's just something
right. He still got the same amount of targets as Bucky Irving did yesterday, and less targets than K-Dot and Rashad White. So, but it's like option number 6 or 7.
Yeah, and if everybody's healthy, he's just like he's practice squad guy.
Exactly.
But it's still such a cool thing. It's a cool story, and I'm happy for Sterling Shepard and Baker Mayfield, who looked really excited to get that touchdown with him on the sideline.
Yep. All right. So great game, and we're going to hope to look forward to some more great games this week. So we're going to go into our starts of the week. My first one is Brock Purdy, because the Cardinals defense is trash.
Yep.
And it's hard not to pick any 49er for your starts of the week right now. But Purdy is also a top 5 quarterback in football right now. He's leading the league in yards per attempt and completely running away in air yards per attempt. And he's doing this while being blitzed the 5th most in the league. I mean, this is not your typical Kyle Shanahan dink and dunk his way down the field. He's taking a lot of shots. He's making more deep throws than anybody else in football right now. And that's one of the reasons why I'm not worried about Ayuk either, because he's throwing the ball deep.
Purdy's playing well. Eventually they'll, the timing is really what I think is off right now between those two. And that's not going to be an issue for the whole year. People forget Ayuk did not practice at all until I think the week of their first game. Like that, they can say what they want about being in football shape, but there's nothing like playing football to be in football shape. And then as a wide receiver especially, who requires timing and precision with the quarterback, I don't care what you say, that's going to affect you at least for a little while you get that timing and rhythm back with your QB. Like, it has to happen.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, I'm going to go with Jordan Love for a lot of the same reasons. The Rams defense is very, very bad. It's not going to get any better anytime soon. It could turn into a Josh Jacobs week, but at the same time, I think that the Rams secondary in particular is what is very bad for them. They are allowing the most deep passing yards in the league. Like, this is a team that's going to want to throw it. Like, look at what Jordan Love did to the Vikings defense last week. The Vikings defense had been making everybody look stupid. And Jordan Love made some mistakes, but I think that's how you have to beat the Vikings defense. They threw for 400 and something yards. They're not afraid to let him throw the ball. And that was, 1 week less recovered from his knee injury than he is right now.
Yeah.
So I think we're going to see more and more of the old Jordan Love from late last year, where he gets that timing back and has a really, really big game against a very, very suspect secondary.
All right, for the running back position, like I said, it's hard not to pick Niners here, so I'm going with Jordan Mason. He's on pace for 1,800 yards. He's second in the league, only to King Henry in rushing yards, and he's first in missed tackles forced. He's also first in runs of 10-plus yards.
Yeah.
And the Cardinals' defense is bad, so don't overthink it. Just start him.
Hashtag analysis right here.
Hashtag player good. Start player.
Hashtag player good, defense bad.
All right, who do you have for your start of the week at running back?
My start of the week is actually going to be James Conner. The 49ers defense, the run defense in particular, hasn't been great. Their pass defense is still very good. The Niners are still a little bit banged up. And I think that the Cardinals are going to want to run the ball, take the pressure off of Kyler Murray. And I think this is the week that they're really going to start to get back to it. James Conner is still awesome. James Conner has looked very explosive. He's looked very good. Even against teams that, last week against the Commanders, still, James Conner still looked really good. They just got down really, really, really big, really fast. So they stopped running the ball as much. And I think that James Conner is going to have a really good game against this Niners defense, who have allowed, I think you said, they're 18th against the run. And if you look at the teams they've played, there isn't a good offense among them. Pretty bad slate that they've faced so far.
And they may be without Fred Warner. So
and
keep an eye on that for sure.
Woo.
Also, just a bonus running back here, Derrick Henry. Don't overthink it. Just start him. Don't be ageist. He's leading the league in rushing. Start the man.
Yeah. He's just
for,
as fast as he was.
This wide receiver I really like. I've liked him coming into the year. Why I made stupid comments about Nico Collins not being in the top 30.
It's okay. You've owned your L. It's fine.
I'm an idiot. But Stephon Diggs, it's a revenge game. Everyone keeps saying it's not, and both sides have nothing but good things to say about each other in the media. But in the back of his mind, he wants to go out there and show up. You know, he wants to go and show them that he's still the best player on the field. Which, I mean, Nico Collins is better, but
Well, Steph
he
Diggs
just kind of wants to rub it in Buffalo's face that they don't have a wide receiver like him.
Well, especially both sides have been taking very subtle shots at each other. Seems in the media, like when Josh Allen after week 1, or was it 2, when he said that it's great not having anybody that cares about scoring touchdowns and just everybody playing as a group. Well, who do you think that was a shot at there? And then CJ Stroud said that it was great to see Diggs having fun again on a football field. It's like, were you not having fun in Buffalo? What? Trayvon Diggs. They asked Trayvon Diggs, Steph Diggs' brother, about this after the Cowboys game this past week, and he was like, "What time is that?" Because he wants to watch it, and for some reason unknown to me, the NFL decided to make this a noon kickoff game along with all the other friggin' noon games. But they told him what time it was. The Cowboys don't play until later that night. I think they're on Sunday Night Football, and they said, "Will you be watching?" Basically, I'm paraphrasing this part, but they asked him if he's going to watch, and he said yes, and raised his eyebrow a little bit. So, yeah, I think that's a pretty good indication that Steph Diggs wants to really own this game.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, talk to me about Dontavian Wicks.
All right, so Dontavian Wicks, all this kid does is produce. Like he's not a perfect player, but when he's getting a shot, he's putting up points. He's had 3 games with at least a 70% route participation share. Week 15 last year, when he had like 16.7 PPR points. In week 18 last year, when he had 2 touchdowns and like 20-something points. And this past week, when he had another 2 touchdowns and 13 targets. Like, yes, excuse me, his catch rate wasn't great. He's had some issues with drops, but it's also, part of being a receiver is having the trust of the QB to where even if you drop a pass or 2, they still come at you. They still throw it to you. And he still led the team in targets. Dontavian Wicks led the Packers in targets. And as we mentioned before, they're facing a defense that is not good. And the Packers may also be without Romeo Doubs. Romeo Doubs missed practice yesterday with a personal reason. And Matt LaFleur said that he is possibly going to miss the game. They're not sure. So, I mean, even when Wicks is on the field with Doubs, Wicks gets more targets. Wicks gets more yards. Wicks does all that stuff. I'm not too scared, but if Doubs is out, that just frees up more for Dontavian Wicks. I think people need to be starting him. I have him in 2 dynasty leagues, and I'm starting him in both.
Yeah, and we obviously hope everything's okay with Doubs.
Yes.
It reminds me I need to go in and switch him out of my lineup. One more I want to throw out there. I've seen people kind of nervous about starting Ja'Marr Chase. Start the talent, man. The Bengals offense is 3rd in points per drive. They're 6th in offensive EPA, expected points added per play. And yeah, the Ravens defense looked a lot better last week than it has in the past, but the Ravens are still giving up the 9th most points to the wide receiver position.
Yep.
So start Ja'Marr Chase. Don't be afraid. Just do it. Start your talent. Big and true.
Start your stars. Start your stars.
All right. So tight ends. Back to old familiar, Travis Kelce.
I'll talk about Trey McBride next. You talk about Kelce.
All right. Back to his old role. With Rashee Rice out, who's going to be working the middle of the field? It's going to be Travis Kelce. He's got the rapport with Mahomes. He trusts him. You saw it last week. Plus, who else are they going to give the ball to?
Sky Moore?
No. Please don't. Kareem Hunt?
Nobody wants to see Sky
Nobody
Moore.
wants those. Nobody wants that. Just give it to Kelce.
All right. So I'm gonna talk about Trey McBride because that's a really good one. The Niners defense, when somebody's setting their lineups, they're going to see that Niners defense is red against tight ends. Oh man, should I start Trey McBride? My question is, who the hell else are you going to start? If you have Trey McBride, you ain't got another tight end. Trey McBride is the number 2 receiver on Arizona. San Fran's going to put up points against that god-awful defense. Like, the Cardinals are going to try and score. This means to me that I think Trey McBride is going to have himself one nice day, regardless of whether Fred Warner plays or not. Obviously, if Fred Warner doesn't play, he's going to have a better day because Fred Warner's freaking awesome. But I still think even if Warner plays, that the Cardinals are going to be trying to get the ball to McBride because their two best offensive weapons are definitely Marvin Harrison Jr. and Trey McBride in the passing game. And they're going to feed those guys because they're going to need to. Drew Petzing is kind of calling some underwhelming games. And I think one of the underrated reasons that they didn't do very well against Washington last week is that they did not have Trey McBride come because of his concussion. So I'm really interested to see what Arizona does against the San Francisco defense, which, while not to its usual standards, has still been playing well and obviously has Fred Warner, who is playing like a defensive player of the year. I mean, Fred Warner was already a legendary player, and he's ratcheted up the play ability even more this year, which is just, I mean, if ever an off-ball linebacker was going to win defensive player of the year, this is that year. Because normally they don't put up the sacks, they don't put up the picks. Normally there's an edge rusher getting 22 sacks, whatever it is. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So it goes to those guys. None of the edge rushers are putting up those crazy stats this year. Warner's already got 2 picks, including 1 pick six. He's just so good.
He's everywhere.
He is.
He's
everywhere.
all over. He's like prime Patrick Willis, man. He's everywhere.
I was gonna say he's like Roy Kent from Ted Lasso. He's here. He's there. He's there. Good player.
Good throwback there.
Thank you.
Also, not for nothing, Trey McBride put up 10 and 102 last time he faced the Niners last year, and it's largely the same defense. So,
to be fair, though, the Cardinals didn't have Marvin Harrison Jr., who has very interesting quarter-by-quarter splits. In the first quarter, he's caught all his touchdowns, and basically nothing the rest of the game, which is crazy because by whatever metric you want to go, average separation score, Matt Harmon's RP profile charting of him, whatever metric you want, Marvin Harrison Jr. is creating a shit ton of separation. They're just not calling plays for him after the first quarter, I guess. I don't really know. But you got to kind of figure that the Cardinals are going to do a little bit of self-scouting. Be like, why didn't we score more than 14 points against the Commanders' defense that is bad? And they're going to figure out, hey, maybe we should keep throwing the ball to our best guys.
Yeah, maybe.
We should do that.
All right, that's all we got for today's episode. Don't forget to like and subscribe on our socials. We would appreciate it. My personal Twitter is at EasyMac, EZMAC_FF, and Kenny is at Kenny Theodore. So yeah, we'll see you next time.
See you Monday.